I think the thing that really got me here is I'd spent more than 20 years in academic neurosurgery and thought I had some idea of how brain, mind, consciousness worked. And I fully bought into kind of the reductive materialist mindset of neuroscience of the 20th century. It says there's something about the complexity of the human brain, 100 billion neurons, and their complexity in spatial temporal firing that gives you consciousness. And even though nobody had a clue how that worked, I thought, well, we just need to study it more and we'll figure it out. And that's why my illness, which came on in November 2008, was so absolutely completely revolutionary for my thinking. I had to go back and question everything I ever thought I knew about reality. And the reason is that I had a very severe case of bacterial meningitis. And only in looking back on it months and months later did I start to realize what a perfect model for human death meningitis is, because especially a severe form like I had, a gram-negative, that was a very rare type, it basically dissolves the neocortex. And our modern ideas in neuroscience, basically as part of that understanding of the complexity of the brain giving rise to consciousness, says that an essential part of that mechanism is that extremely powerful calculator of the neocortex. It's the most powerful calculator. The whole outer surface of the brain is the part that makes us human, or at least it gives rise to all the details of conscious experience, according to that model. And the problem was, deep in the middle of my coma, when my kind of awareness was thumped down to almost nothing, this very primitive, what I call earthworm's eye view, very unresponsive and rudimentary form of conscious awareness that basically was a flicker away from nothingness. I would have thought, if you'd asked me before my coma, well, what's the next step beyond that? As this disease kind of finally wipes out your neocortex, what's the next step? And it would have been very clear to me the next step is obviously one of nothingness. And just the opposite happened. And that part was a mind bender. Now, of course, I knew nothing about the mystery of it deep in coma because my meningitis was so absolutely devastating that it had destroyed all of my memories of Eben Alexander's life before coma, any religious concepts, certainly on my scientific knowledge, words, language, knowing of anything of my life, any personal relationships, etc., completely wiped out. And of course, for a long time after my coma, I thought, well, that made sense because my neocortex was so devastated. My doctors knew that full well. They had the scans, the neuro exams. Any doctor who knows anything about gram-negative bacterial meningitis and the details of my illness realizes people don't go in there and then come back with, hallucinations or dreams or exotic stories. They come back with nothing. In fact, the reality is they usually don't come back at all. And that's why in the midst of this coma, to actually have the blinders coming off with this extraordinary odyssey that I went through that I describe in the book Proof of Heaven, should not have happened at all. According to all of our modern notions of brain creates consciousness, it should not have happened at all. And yet, I was left with this absolutely astonishing, ultra-real experience. And, many cycles and a odyssey that seemed to go on for months or years, although it clearly had to fit within 7 Earth days. And so to me, that was a central mystery, was how is it that when you wipe out the neocortex, you actually take the blinders off and allow consciousness of a far richer, more real and comprehensive knowing to come into existence. And that was what kind of drove me to come to some explanation.